We keep getting all this external validation and then we feel more and more empty inside.
because there's no human that's exactly like you, period. And that's just the way it is. Being human is fucking hard.
Yeah.
Hey, and welcome to Be Alive with Kate Manser. Look at this amazing floral arrangement. It was a from me to me gift today for no other reason than, I suppose, celebrating being alive. If you're listening, it is red, it is purple, it even has little flowers that are shaped like fireworks. And I'm just over the moon with this little bit of joy that I brought into my studio and get to share with you today. Today's episode brings you Stephanie Douple, my friend who I had the pleasure of meeting via Craigslist, truly, many years ago. I was looking for a place to live in Austin back in the day. She was trying to sublet her place. By the end of that apartment showing session, she said, "Don't rent this place. It's actually horrible and I'm trying to get out of it. And let's become friends," which we did for the past 7 or so years. It's been amazing watching her journey. Her stories that she shares in this episode today, like getting plucked off the streets of Vegas, becoming a model in New York, descending into addiction, descending out of addiction, and most recently, her journey becoming a therapist, which she is so gifted and I think destined to be helping people in this way. She's got tons of juicy stories and tips and tricks that she's learned in her many years as a therapist and going to the depths of addiction and back. I can't wait to share Stephanie's story with you. Here we go.
Put your hand on your heart, look up at the sky, smile and say, "Hey, I'm alive. Thanks for being alive with me today." What's your karaoke jam?
I would say like a Billy Joel. I love a good Billy
Okay.
Joel. You are the singer.
I mean, singing is, well, rock star was my first choice career. Writer was my second. So I did the writer. That's still in progress, but I'm working on rock
Are
star.
you?
Yeah. Are you like
Ooh.
I feel like you are a performer at heart.
Oh, 1,000,000%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was a performing arts instructor. And then I also, I did the modeling stuff in Manhattan when I was in my 20s. Went to college in Utah and Vegas was 2 hours away. And I go with
Mm.
sorority sisters to Vegas because that's what you do. And some guy named Breakfast came up to me and said,
Wait, did you just say a guy named Breakfast? Okay. So we're in Vegas. A guy named Breakfast comes
and
up.
let me set the scene. It's like the early 2000s, right? Paris Hilton. So I'm tall, skinny, blonde, and a guy named Breakfast is like, "You should walk the runway for Maxim magazine at Kanye West's Dropout album party, college dropout."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Well, obviously, sign me up where?" And so there I go walking this runway and, ended up signing with an agency and blah, blah, blah. And after college, I go to Manhattan. And that's where it really started doing the gigs. But prior to that, my inner child loved performing. And so I was always a part
Mm,
of plays. And my mom was an actress.
really?
Yeah. Yeah. She was an actress back in the day.
How did that show up for you when you were growing up? That element of the performer? Did you have mics in your hand and being in the car?
Yes. I was in dance and had to do every routine twice for mom to videotape. And then the Missoula Children's Theater was a company that would come around and pick local kids to be in their production. And it would last a week where you would go after school and learn a bunch of lines. And so for instance, the people who ran it were like the main characters. And then they would kind of pick the kids to come in, for instance, like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Like I was one of the dwarfs along with
Aw.
some other kids. And so we would learn this production in a week and perform it for everyone, like on the Friday and Saturday.
Wow, Louisiana.
I'm a sports brat. Dad's job took me everywhere. He was
Mhm.
a commissioner in the NCAA and in athletics his whole life. And so we moved around a lot. But yeah, so I grew up in Louisiana. So
You've been everywhere.
yes.
Louisiana, Utah, Breakfast
Manhattan.
discovered you
Yeah.
in Vegas,
Yeah.
New York City,
Yes.
now Austin, and
Now
I'm sure there's
Austin.
plenty of other spaces in
Yes.
between.
Like you.
Do you feel like you're really adaptable?
Yes.
It
Changes
changes?
and it goes on. Boom.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that's what I need to hear when I'm in my darkest moment.
Yeah.
Because when I'm in my darkest moment, I feel like life can't go on because I'm hurting so much. And I feel like it's never going to change. So, like, those two things and then realizing those two are part of the reason that I'm here today.
Tell me more about your dark time, though.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
We gotta
I've
go
talked
there.
so much on this show about the deep depression that I was in 2022. And now looking back, I can see that it was absolutely something that needed to happen. It was a profound cleansing that happened in my life, but it was really, I think, based in building grit and resilience. I can see that
Mm.
was a huge area for improvement that I'm still working on. And number 2, rejiggering my self-worth to move away from achievement and adoration and into, like, my true value as a human, which is just, what I call intrinsic self-worth.
Yeah.
Yeah, have you been down the self-worth rejiggering journey?
Yes, and I love that word. That is, you just gotta get in there and jiggle it a little.
Yeah, recalibration,
Yes,
rejigger.
I love that. It's been a fascinating journey to find myself. It's been one of the most difficult journeys. This is a wild ride, this human experience. And I do believe in soul contracts. And I do believe that I signed up for certain things prior to becoming human, being in this human body. I needed to accomplish certain things so that my soul could level up. Addiction was one of them. I think addiction is something that I've tried to overcome for many lifetimes.
Really?
I do. This lifetime as Stephanie Douple, right, is such an imperative lifetime for my soul's evolution. I
Mhm.
deeply believe that. And so, with this like unwavering faith that I have with my higher self, God, source, spirit, whatever word you want to put there, is what gets me through. I feel divinely protected. But this divine protection I knew nothing of 6+ years ago. So it's just a constant journey to forget everything that I think I know about myself and of life as I know it so that I can have a new experience.
Mhm.
Because we're constantly learning new things. Life is constantly changing and constantly going on. And we're just constantly here for it, observing it all. But the love within myself is hard because I was programmed in a unique way. As I was kind of joking around earlier, like a lot of my narrative can be brought to you by body dysmorphia. It's like I really have like a distorted perception a lot of the time because
Mm.
I was programmed a specific way. And it's hard to recalibrate as a human. Like we were talking about earlier, like being human is fucking
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah. So do you think that your body dysmorphia, I mean, of course there's a lot of it could be from past lives, right? And but it seems like the way that you're speaking that you feel like a good percentage of it came from your conditioning in this lifetime growing up.
Yes, and I do think that there are some physical defects that I've always had from the jump. I will just speak openly about them here and now with you. But I was born cross eyed. And
Mhm.
so my right eye was turned in, and I had to go into surgery at the age of 1. And so that was, I know, had an impact on my brain development, right? And then at age 5 and 7, I used to hit
More
my,
surgeries?
yes,
Wow.
yes. Then also, I have a pectus excavatum, which is a dent in my chest. So I have the concave
Mhm.
chest. And, that really impeded my development growing up because I would kind of look at myself as different. I was always different. My eyes, if I didn't look at someone on the left side, my eye would go to the right and people would be like, "What are you looking at?" I'd be like, "Oh my gosh." I was a swimmer and my suit would sink into my chest and I would have to pull it out. And so, like, these physical defects, I think, added to the narrative as well, where I always felt
Mhm.
deformed and different.
And just a hyper focus on your physical body, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yes. I was always hyper aware about my body. And then cut to randomly, at 21, it's like, oh, you should model. Let me
yeah.
put extensions on you and put breast
I've
implants
always
on
thought I
you.
was a freak, and now,
Yes.
like, they're gonna put me on a pedestal as one of the most beautiful.
And
Wow.
yeah, and that's where I am just like, what is real? What is real? I got breast implants, I had extensions, I was Paris Hilton looking,
Mhm.
and just thankfully since then I've had the breast implants removed and walked through that whole process.
Wow.
And just it is the with myself, with my body has been really difficult with self-love for me. And so yeah, that's definitely been a journey. I still struggle with that today.
Oh my gosh.
And
I
then
can
I
only
got
imagine.
sober and gained a bunch of weight, and I
Yeah.
was like,
Oh my
what
god.
is going on?
Yeah. But, what an interesting thing, because I started this program a few years ago called Survive Your Success. And this came from my own journey with rejiggering, recalibrating my self worth and extracting my self worth from achievement. But what I realized is that for people who have big dreams, for people who want to have wealth, fame, power, notoriety, whatever, which, I do still want that. Now I want it for different reasons. But let's just say someone like Anthony Bourdain, for example,
Mhm.
right? Someone who is esteemed, and as they go through their career, they're winning awards, they're selling books, they're getting TV shows, and all they're getting is more and more validation of these external achievements as what makes them wonderful and what makes them powerful and what makes them important. And so what happens is, and this I noticed in myself and many other people who have especially successful or wealthy individuals who abuse drugs or attempt or commit to unalive themselves, is
Mhm.
that as we go, if we haven't done the work to figure out what's really valuable about us as humans, is that we keep getting all this external validation and then we feel more and more empty inside. And so then we get to this point where we feel that all we are is these external aspects of ourselves,
Right.
and we're empty inside. And I've felt that. I'm sure that you have felt
Yeah.
that at different points.
Yeah.
And so I just want to bring that to your journey. Someone who felt like you were broken and
Mhm.
then got all of this external validation heaped on you, like, come to this gig, be model this,
Yes.
like, be the hot girl to come be at this party, and we're going to pay you all this money and do your hair and give you clothes. And so you walked that journey, and then
Mhm.
you've been on the journey now many years of it sounds like unlearning that, having the
Oh, yeah.
implants removed. So
Yes.
talk to me about that. I'm so curious about that aspect of your journey.
It's so difficult to really put into words because it's such a personal experience. I've had to constantly it's almost like I am in battle with myself. One of my therapists, so every good therapist has a
Oh,
therapist. And I was told this and it resonates with me still to this day. And so my therapist one time told me, she said, think of that part of you, give it a name. What's her name? And I was like, oh, her name is Liz. And so Liz will just berate me and tell me all the things.
mm,
And so for a while, I would constantly measure myself, and then had breast implants and then I went from a C to a B. And I was like, well, wait a minute. I don't feel like they're high enough now. Should I go ahead and get that done? Wait, I think my second toe is too long. What shall I do about that?
mm,
Or I have strawberry skin. What am I going to do about that? I mean, the list can go on and it's very exhausting. And so I got sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so now Liz is a part of me. She comes out and she says what she needs to, and we allow her to share and we observe her. Because ultimately, I am the observer just watching this movie as we all are. I wish I could sit here and say, like, this is exactly what you do, and then you'll be rid of it forever. And it's just not that way.
no.
It's a lifestyle. It's really understanding and catching yourself in these negative thought processes and then recalibrating and retraining and reforming and reframing. And if you think about how many years we went thinking a certain
Hmm.
way, just like if you were so used to using your left hand and then you all of a sudden had to use your right hand, like it's going to take a while. And even then, you're going to still catch yourself like, oh, wait, I can do both at the same time. Or like, oh, I used to use my left hand here. Now I'm using my right. I mean, it takes a long time,
Yeah.
especially when you're older. And I am older. And this journey with sobriety didn't happen for me until 34. The journey with modeling didn't happen for me until after college. I started doing gigs around 21, 22. So I was a junior going into my senior year of college. And so I went to Manhattan. And once drugs hit my system, though, I experienced an allergy where it was not like a normal person. It was similar to a drug addict where
Yeah.
I just I went balls to the wall in a way, and I really kind of burnt my bridges down. But that's a long answer to your question of what it's like to kind of find self-love after all of that. And
Mm.
it's a difficult, daunting process, yet it is absolutely possible.
Wow. So you're in New York. Let's go back there if you don't mind. So you're
Yeah.
in New York, you have this lifestyle, it's fast, it's glamorous, and also it sounds like very ugly in a lot of ways because you discovered that you have this allergy to drugs where you can't use them like a quote unquote normal person. What was it like? Did you have to leave New York? Did you have an awakening there?
No.
Talk to us about the sobriety.
Yeah, see, I didn't know I had an allergy to drugs there. I thought it was normal. Like, I thought everyone smoked heroin, because I was dating a guy who was 10 years older than me, as we do as models. I was also working in the publishing world. So I was working in ad sales and just burning both ends of the candlestick. And he worked for this prestigious magazine, and I was around publishers and models and just traveling all over. And everyone was smoking or snorting or something.
Mhm.
This was also when the pill epidemic first started and the Shecklers were allowing everyone, right, to have OCs, Oxycontin, like the real authentic 80s where we would suck off the codeine and crush them up and snort them.
Wow.
And it was a normal thing. So I
Everybody
didn't
was doing
I
it.
didn't think that there was an issue, right? I would do a line and walk the runway. This little girl from Utah who had no idea that I had a spiritual malady in my back pocket. Now I did grow up in a interesting dynamic at home. Borderline personality disorder symptoms were present within my family, within the house I lived, and it was a chaotic upbringing where there was just a lot of fights. So, but I had no idea.
Yeah.
No idea. My spiritual awakening did not come until my 30s, which is so it was a good
10 years.
it was 10 years.
I so resonate with that notion of just total ignorance, total naivete, right? And people are like, well, how could you not know that you were doing too many drugs? How could you not know that you were drinking to excess? Like, I literally did not even know that you could be sober. The
Yes.
idea that someone could just never drink again, I had never experienced one person in my entire life who didn't drink. So that
Right.
concept it didn't even exist. It was like either you drink and you like can't stop or you're a normal drinker. The idea of not drinking was
Never.
not even for me. So
Right.
I can imagine you I mean, going from being a girl growing up in Louisiana and Utah.
Mhm.
So we were talking about how just this idea of being so naive and
Yes.
so ignorant
Yes.
to not know that we're doing too many drugs or to not know that sobriety is an option. And it sounds so bananas, I think, to an outsider. But looking back, the first sober person that I came across was this woman who I had gone to high school with. And she started posting on Facebook, she was a couple grades below me in her late 20s. And so I was like 30 at the time. And she started posting about how she was going. And she's like a photographer in LA with like, she does campaigns for amazing brands. So I looked up to her and I was like, oh, if she can be sober, oh my gosh, you can just not drink and be cool and have like a really interesting, vibrant life. And that was really my first experience of realizing that I can just not drink. So
That's
I
insane.
totally relate to what you're saying about just being so you were thrown in to New
Yes, but
York
even in
City.
Utah, everyone I was around was like smoke, and drink a little on the weekends. My dad was a drinker on the weekends. I just grew up around people partying. It was very much condoned. A lot of the industries I was in, it was condoned. And it never occurred to me that you could just be sober. And it also sounded like absolutely wild. Why would you ever want a raw dog life? Like, why would you want to do that? They must be insane. But here I am at 6+ year. I'm gonna be 7 in May next year.
Girl,
I mean,
cheers. Cheers to
cheers.
feeling fully
Yes.
alive and sober. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Mhm. We're getting messed up on water here, y'all. Filtered
Oh,
7 years. Okay. So
that's
we
so
just did like,
wild.
a abbreviated version of your arc prior to sobriety. We kind of understand like where you came from, college, New York, and then 10 years of just being in the addiction, in the allergy. So what
Mhm.
changed?
What changed is something needed to change. What we call a first step in recovery really looked something like I had some gigs booked. I was living outside of Austin at the time, but I had some gigs booked for Fashion Week because I would always go back to Manhattan for Fashion Week. And a designer that I'd worked with for so many years had a dress for me that I was going to walk on her show. And I was so excited to go back. And I get too drunk at the Austin airport. I end up somehow
Okay. Yeah.
so drunk that I can't even like speak correctly to people. They're like, I don't even want to deal.
Mm.
And I'm dating this, what's his name? And he's drunk with me. So it's both of us somehow end up in California. And I was just a mess. I like blackout, was very combative. I was so aggressive. I was very mean to this guy.
The person that you were dating? Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I was very mean to him. I somehow make it back to Texas
Never
and
made it to New York for Fashion Week with the dress that was waiting.
never made it to New York.
Mhm.
Never. I had to somehow, apologize and all the things. But then I somehow make it back to Austin and said, this is really personal. And I would put a trigger warning here because it does include physical violence. So, my head is bashed into a closet and I say that with a laugh because your girl been traumatized.
Mhm.
There's just a drunken fight. We're still drinking, all the things. And somehow I get like thrown into a closet door because I did make a derogatory comment about his member.
Mhm.
And, I end up in treatment, thankfully, because the next day my aunt happened to come over and it's like 10 o'clock in the morning. And I had just decided to pop another Xanax, the blue football. Since 10 in the morning, I'm still drunk from the night before, have a gash in the back of my head. There's blood on
Oh
my,
my gosh.
and she's like, okay, you need some help. And I was like, I do. I need help. Like, I knew I needed help. I just didn't know how. I was so far deep and I didn't know how. And I definitely was brought up in a home where you didn't speak about mental health or like anything like that. It was just like sweep it under the rug. Like we don't talk about it. And so, yes, it was really great that my Aunt Bonnie,
And
she,
Angel Bonnie,
Angel Bonnie comes and saves me. I end up in treatment and I like wanted to do something different. I wanted it.
you were willing.
I had the desire. And that's the piece right there is that I wanted it.
Oh yeah, I mean, we all know stories of people that are offered help over and over and over again and don't take it.
They never take it.
Yeah.
And then they relapse it, and that's switching topics. That's another unfortunate part of the treatment and working in treatment. I'm now a therapist, right? And I have a lot of clients who come from the addiction world and are in rehab or are just leaving rehab, and their parents pay umpteen
Oh.
thousands of
Mhm.
dollars for them to just constantly relapse, which was not a narrative I was tied to. It was, I am one and done. And thankfully today I'm still one and done. I don't have an experience with relapse outside of combating my stuff head on. And I've seen so many people who do, which is unfortunate.
Well, I'm sure you see it in your clients
Oh, yeah.
a lot. So
Oh,
you've
yeah.
experienced it through them.
Yes, right? It's like, why would you want to do that? That's the insanity of it. If you are allergic to strawberries or peanuts and your esophagus closes up and you break out in hives and you end up in the ER and you need to carry around an EpiPen, like you're likely not to eat peanuts again and be mindful, right? But if you overdose and you like black out or like end up in the hospital, you're like, well, maybe Tuesday next week will be different. Maybe I can have a drink after work. Maybe it'll be different.
Mm.
It's not. You're still going to be allergic to peanuts, you know, or like strawberries or whatever
Oh
it
yeah.
is. I don't think that everyone needs to stay abstinent. I do think that there's not a one size fits all for this game. Personally, for me and my story, I recognize that I went down quick right after I put drugs in my body. Like I just had an allergy to it,
Mhm.
but I don't think that's for everyone. I think it's okay to understand what your relationship is because, people, there's a lot of ketamine treatments out there. There's a lot of microdosing out there. There's a lot of psilocybin out there. There's a lot of stuff out there that does have a lot of medicinal properties. And I do think that if you use it in the context, now, again, just to reiterate, that's not something for me. It is something I'm interested in, though, and observe, and I'm asking questions about it because I do think that there are benefits. But I do know people who have been to rehabs that are still drinking today. I have to be fully honest, and they practice like harm reduction plans.
Mhm.
And harm reduction plans are a big part of the treatment industry now, and they are helpful for people because it allows them to have a healthy relationship with substances.
Mhm. Can you talk to us then about harm reduction? Because I actually just found out what harm reduction is, like, within the last few years when I entered the sobriety community. I'm
Yeah,
celebrating 5 years in January, which is cool.
I appreciate
Because I
that.
think I met you right after I got sober
Well,
in
I don't think
2020.
you were
Oh, I
sober yet
wasn't sober yet?
because it was 2019 when we met, but I read your book and I was like, so much of your stuff that you post is like recovery related. And you were like, I think I'm going to move forward with sobriety. And I was like, amazing.
Oh, so you were definitely then I got the timeline mixed up, but you were another person that God put in my path to be like, "Here's this cool, amazing woman, and she's sober, and open your eyes, Kate." Because, yeah, I guess we did meet in 2019. We actually met
Yes.
on Craigslist because
So
I was
wild.
looking for a place to live, and you
So
were renting a room or you were renting your place
yes,
out or
yes, and it
something.
was at this very, unique location in Austin. I was like, "No." I was
You're
like
like
I
You're
was
like,
like,
you
"No."
came here. I went there to tour the house, and like by halfway through, you're like, don't move here, but let's be friends. I'm like,
Yes.
yes, okay, that's
Yes.
why I'm here.
Yes.
Oh,
Oh my gosh, look who came in.
hi.
That's my kitty
We
cat,
have
Caden. He looks like a
16 years
lion.
old.
Yes, he's so handsome.
Yeah.
He's just gonna sniff
Okay, he's
around.
just gonna sniff around.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's a very handsome. Oh, I'm sure he smells pajamas.
For people who
Harm
don't know,
reduction.
yeah, what is harm
Harm
reduction?
reduction is, again, it's just, I have to put out there, it's not a one size fits all. So even if I discuss what harm reduction is, I encourage everyone to find what works for them because this human experience is all about take what resonates with you and leave the rest, period. And so harm reduction is something that people embark on where they want a relationship with substances but not to the degree that they are at. So, for instance, it's reducing, they're not going to completely stop marijuana, but possibly they resort to gummies, right? Where they're only taking one gummy. And it is like a reduction plan.
Mhm.
So, if your relationship with alcohol, well, maybe you're doing something along the lines of switching to beer, or you're doing something in a mindful manner with intention to decrease your relationship with a substance that you have identified you have some problematic patterns with.
Yeah. So that can be something that someone chooses maybe as a stair step, in
Absolutely.
addition to maybe they choose it as like, this is what I'm going to do from here on out. So maybe it's something, a tool that they use in their process of getting totally sober. Or for some people, it's just, I'm never going to touch hard drugs again, but it's okay if I drink.
And from a parent realm, because I work with a lot of adolescents. And so some of the parents, Caden is hairy, excuse me. He really is. He is a hairy guy. But so some of the parents will embark on these harm reduction plans with their adolescents because they're not going to be able to monitor them 24. So weed is everywhere. It's in these smoke shops. It's Delta 8 now. It's Delta this.
Gas station.
It's everywhere in the vapes. And so it's just very difficult for parents to monitor. And so it's like, well, a harm reduction plan is allowing the kid to smoke on the weekends only, right? So I have a parent, client, family who does this and it works for them. Again, this is not for everyone. Would this kid be doing it anyway? Yes.
And he would also be probably smoking all day, every day if he didn't have a harm reduction in place.
Yes. And so because it's now allowed, that also because that prefrontal
Uh,
cortex is not developed until 25.
can you just say that again? Oh my
The
gosh.
prefrontal cortex is not developed until you're 25.
And the fact
Yes,
that
yo,
I didn't
same.
have a brain all of those years. I didn't learn this
What?
until just recently either, and I was like, that explains so
Everything.
much. It
So much.
explains the Saturn return. It's like suddenly our brain develops and we we're able to have thought processes.
Yes. Which is so wild because that's where your emotional stability is. That's where your intellect, where you're able to decipher from bad, good, blah, 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 good, bad, and ugly in between. It really is the powerhouse to
Mhm.
everything that is you, is your cognitive executive functioning skills are the last to develop.
I mean, for me, I meet people in the sober community that they are like, "Oh, I'm not gonna drink during my whole life," but it gives me comfort to know that when I'm 89, I might have a glass of wine.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, for me, I'm the opposite. Like, if I even entertain that alcohol might be in my life, it becomes a slippery slope, and I feel very unstable that I might start drinking today or tomorrow. And so for me, I'm operating at my best when I'm like, alcohol is 100% off the table with me. I don't even have to like think about alcohol anymore because I've just totally written it off as it's something that I just don't do and will never do. But it's totally deeply personal, which is, I love
Yeah.
that you bring this to the conversation about sobriety, which is, it's like utilizing that prefrontal cortex that we
Yes.
now have developed and like what will work for you, what aligns with your values, and what has your experimentation shown you in the scientific method of your life.
Yes, exactly. Because there's no human that's exactly like you, period. And that's just the way it is.
Mhm. Mhm.
Caden's saying hi
Oh,
to you
hi.
again
So you're celebrating 7 years
in May.
sober in
Yes.
May.
Yeah.
And I mean, sobriety to me is like definitely a big part of the journey. Like, I've grown up so many years since I removed alcohol from my life. But, I think that there's also just awakenings that are happening. And so you've
Always.
gone through a lot, right? Getting sober. And now you just finished your master's program
Yeah.
in the last like year and a half.
Yeah.
You are a licensed therapist
Yes.
specializing now in EMDR,
Yes.
working with adolescents, mind
Yes.
blowing.
Yeah.
So, what happened after you got sober?
Have you ever heard of an ego death?
Me? Nah.
Have you ever heard of shadow work? Oh,
7 years of shadow work. So
I
that's
mean, it was a good couple years of that. I had some ingrained shit. I had to really reprogram, and I was dedicated to reprogramming. And that's the biggest thing about with any of this, going back to it's that desire piece. I wanted it so bad. I wanted something different because in my heart, I always wanted to help people, as corny as it sounds. Like I genuinely wanted to help. And I felt like by helping myself, I could help others.
okay. You knew that even then.
Subconsciously,
Mhm.
absolutely. I have been divinely protected even when I didn't know it. I'm so grateful that I was divinely protected.
We all are.
We
Yeah.
all are. I was thinking of the humans as a teepee. Like we all have our own little beams of light, but at the end of the day, we all come together at the same source. We all come from the same source. You'll have to remind me about my journey. Oh, my shadow work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I also noticed that definitely in my life, things tend to happen in cycles of 7. This is very common
Absolutely.
for many
Yes.
people.
Yes.
So I'm interested for you,
Yes.
right? You're just almost completing 7
Yes.
years in that journey. Do you have any sense of what your next journey might be?
I
Or is it really digging into this work as a therapist and helping people?
Right now, I'm really becoming comfortable with energy work, which is, I'm definitely part of the woo woo clan.
Mm.
I really have like embarked on this great retreat that you told me about. So I learned how to do my sound bowls there. Tamina taught me how to do my sound bowls. And so now I take that into my sessions. I bring in sound healing into the sessions. I'm utilizing EMDR and different strategies, which is all based on energy. Am very woo woo now. And I
Mhm.
have this really deep connection to my intuition. So you will find me right when you wake up, when you're subconscious, when you're in those theta waves. One of the things that I've kind of trained myself to do is wake up and say, this little mantra of like everything I say and everything I do is aligned with the best for me and for you.
Can you say it
Yes.
again for
Yes.
us?
Everything I say and everything I do is aligned with the best for me and for you.
Everything I say and everything I do is aligned for the best for me and for you.
Yes. If I make a mistake, if I win, all of it was meant to be. And I truly believe that. And so I bring that into my sessions. And so whatever comes up, whatever the client is experiencing, whatever the family is experiencing, whatever, is all meant to be in that space. And so I just bring a very heightened awareness to that space. The other thing I do now all the time is I use my breath and I connect with something higher than me. And I always ask, just use me as a vessel. Just use me as a vessel. And I plant seeds, hopefully, and just help them move on to whatever next chapter and change and flow that
Mhm.
they are on.
I just get the sense that with that mantra and with the sense that you have that things are happening for a reason, like I'm divinely guided, I'm divinely protected, use me as a vessel. As a therapist, you encounter a lot of tough situations, tough emotions, frustrating things, people relapsing that you've been helping for months. But this mantra that you have just really helps you and any of us who are struggling, and especially those of us who are in helping professions, just be at home.
Mm,
Like exactly where we are. And that's
absolutely.
something that I struggle with sometimes where I am in a situation and I just feel like I want to run away from it.
Right.
Just relaxing
Just
into what
relaxing
is.
to what is and flowing and detaching from the results because humans are going to disappoint you. We're human. We're on a 3D earth plane. Humans are going to disappoint you. We are beyond human aid, you know? And so, and that's just going to happen. And so, detaching from the results, what made me think of that is when you talked about having clients relapse after working with them for so long. So many. Not so many, but there's been just so many disappointments, right? Where my ego will see it as a, oh no, like a disappointment, right? But detaching from the results has been one of the biggest and hardest things to do as a therapist, as a human, as a person in
Mm.
recovery, detaching from the results.
Well, and as we've been talking about in this conversation about self-worth,
Mm,
to me that's a huge part of that rejiggering and recalibrating my self-worth is doing things because I love them. You're a therapist because you love helping people. And one of the best ways that therapists help people, yes, it definitely comes from the book, it comes from your talents, but it also comes from your presence and the fact that you sit with them and you listen to them and you're a witness to them. And so from that perspective, like it doesn't matter what the result is because you've given them the most profound gift. And in my work, I have that with my coaching clients as well, but just even in my own personal journey, just detaching from the results of what happens with this book or that art piece or whatever and doing it for the love of doing it. And that's why you're such a great therapist is because you're in this because you've been there and because you love doing it.
I do love doing it. And I love doing more of the trauma work that I do, which is the integrating the trauma into their bodies. So what EMDR is the amygdala where we produce the cortisol. So with bilateral simulation, I call in the subconscious, which is essentially calms the amygdala down, the bilateral simulation does. And so the amygdala produces the cortisol. So they're able to walk through these traumatic experiences with one foot in the here and now and one foot then and integrate that experience into their body without producing the cortisol, creating the new neural pathways.
Wow.
And it's transformative work. It's profound work. And it takes a lot of your own grounding after as a therapist. You do and can take on a lot depending on what comes up. And flushing all of that out of you is important. I do that through grounding. Yeah, I go outside barefoot.
Oh, you actually do the grounding.
I
Yeah. Okay, cool.
actually go outside and I visualize myself on a almost like a pole, like a light beam, if you will. I again shout out to the woo woos. I envision myself with roots growing out of my feet and connecting to Mother Gaia, and then my crown chakra opening up and allowing light to pour in. And it's like a cleansing process. It's almost like a cosmic bath, if you will, and it resides in your mind's eye. And I recently found out that a lot of people don't think in imagery.
Yeah. I think it's a minority of the population, but as a meditation teacher, I have definitely come across because I like to do a lot of visualizations, but I definitely come across people who they can go with it and they can experience something, but they're not getting visual imagery in a
Right.
visualization.
'Cause
And
I
then you've
know
also
you
heard
have
of the people who don't have an internal dialogue.
yes. I know you have a mind like mine where you can visualize to the umpteenth degree, right?
I've got a pretty good imagination. I definitely I can go deep for sure.
Right.
And I think it's a muscle though
Do you
too.
see images?
I mean, if we want to get into the really woo woo, like I think we all have psychic abilities to different degrees, and mine are just like I'll just know something. Like, for
Yeah,
example,
your
2 years
intuition.
ago, I was going to Burning Man, or I was planning Burning Man, like, a couple months before, and I just got this, like, sense of knowing. I was like, "Oh, you should leave early because it's either gonna be a terrible rainstorm or a
Oh,
shooting."
but and you were at the mud
And
storm.
I left on Friday, and that was the day that it started raining, and it was
Oh,
a crazy mudstorm because I had a speaking engagement that I needed to get to. And so mine is like my psychic ability is just like a knowing. Like I don't hear the words. It's like knowledge that
but when
comes in.
someone says red balloon, are you able to picture the
Oh
red
yeah,
balloon?
100%. Totally.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And do you have the internal dialogue where the jibber jabber? Do you have a Liz?
I need to name her.
But you've got her?
But yes.
Yeah. Yes, that must be so nice.
Yeah.
Because it can definitely, at least for me, it's quite cumbersome at sometimes. She can get very loud and it almost sounds like a little bit DID, if you will, right? Dissociative identity disorder, like having multiple personalities, but it's not to that level. We're talking about people who have the inner dialogue completely will understand what I'm talking about, where they have like the little Jiminy Cricket who's just negative, like negative Nancy. And it sounds like you have that as well.
Well, I mean, that was in my this deep depression of 2022. It was like there was a demon in my mind
Yeah.
that was just telling me horrible things all day long, and I believe that I was just building this neuroplastic architecture that the more I thought these negative thoughts, the more they were just taking over my mind. And so just like you said earlier that it's like this daily practice like with your body
Yes.
dysmorphia or with
Yeah.
anything that we can condition ourselves out of it. And that's another thing is when we realize that we can with the reps of silencing the voice, of correcting the voice with logic, of telling the voice like you're there but I'm not going to believe you, that I can go from literally thinking the most horrible negative thoughts all day every day to now do I have negative thoughts that come up? Yeah, totally. I just had to do like a deep session last night because I had all these negative thoughts, but mostly I have a flow of positive thoughts because, as I'm
The
sure
work.
you have, the work. Yeah,
Mhm.
the reps of every time that voice comes up, put it away, correct it, whatever needs to be done.
And it's not easy.
Mm.
Don't you wish it was easier? Like, don't I often wish there was like some magic wand, right? That come see me for a couple hours, each month and you'll be cured.
Yeah,
I
just
wish,
shoo.
yes,
We'll just
yes,
brush it from your mind.
yes. And it's just not that way. It takes a lot of work, but
Mm.
it's very possible.
But it's just so regal. It's the most I can't even think of the word other than it's regal, it's noble. Like, I do wish that it was easier, but also when we are able to recondition negative thoughts into positive thoughts, when we're able to there's a guy right now who's running across Texas. I met him at an event a couple of months ago, and he's running across Texas. And it just makes me think like the thoughts that you have to I mean, he's literally running between 40 and 50 miles a day for 17 days to run
Same.
across Texas. And just imagine how bad you want to stop and the self talk that you have to do in order to keep going through something like that.
What an aligned human.
Yeah. And
Kudos to you.
it helps if we're like a little bit batshit crazy. Yeah.
And I mean, I definitely think that's true as well. At the end of the day, I am like a unique, silly, goofy, like awkward gal out here just living
Yes. You're
life.
so radiant when you say
I mean,
that because,
just is what it
yeah.
is. And I'd much rather be this way than any other way. I choose this life, not out of ignorance or being painfully naive, but because I've seen that dark, I've
Hmm.
seen how dark it can get. I choose love and light and being silly. My inner child is alive and well.
Our little Stephanie is
I
just
know.
playing
Oh my
and
gosh, I have a picture of her on my mirror in
you
my bathroom.
do.
Yeah. I
That's so
love little
beautiful.
Stephanie. Yeah, no, she's just living her best life. And again, she's, at the picture I have in there is 7. 7-year-old Stephanie. And that was a big year for me, looking back on all of that with the surgeries and the body stuff. And
Mhm.
there was just a lot of stuff that happened that year. So my inner child is 7.
Mm.
Yes. So I'm taking care of her now.
And we did just talk about sevens too.
That's so
Wow.
wild. And so coming back to 7, so between the ages of 35 and 42, a human ideally has stepped into their soul purpose. And if they haven't, because again, everything goes in sevens. And so for this phase, 35 to 42, if the human hasn't stepped into their soul purpose, they experience a severe disconnect, which is quote unquote where the midlife crisis come from and whatnot. So if you aren't where your soul is supposed to be in this lifetime, people, places, things will apparently just explode, if you will, right?
Really?
Maybe
I haven't
people
heard
lose
about this.
jobs, maybe marriages fail, maybe there's health, blah, 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 blah. So the soul will conspire to get you where you're supposed to be on this journey.
And how can I ask how old you are?
Yes.
Yeah.
I am obviously 30 or 20.
Forever.
No, I hit 40 last December. I know. Thank you. I
You hit 40
know.
last December
It-
in your soul's purpose
and I'm in my about 1,000,000%, but I'm going to be 41.
in a couple months.
And the other part that is fucking wild, and I can't believe that this is part of my story, but it fucking is, right? And I'm embracing it. But this is a lesson that my soul is leveling up with this time around, that I'm not married and I don't have kids in my 40s. So I'm writing this narrative as a woman with a biological clock ticking. I won't settle. I recently got out of a relationship because he was lost, emotional instability, and just lost in his career, lost within himself. And he was just internally grumpy. I didn't feel called to continue on with that. So here I am single as a woman who doesn't drink, childless, and walking through this narrative, which is basically like living every woman's nightmare, right? Because, oh, you have to be married by 40, you have to have kids, or at least like it's hella more socially acceptable to be divorced by 40, right? Not necessarily never married.
Whoa, I've never heard of that before. I've never considered that.
But
Yeah.
don't you
I
think
mean, I'm divorced. I got divorced 10 years ago, actually. I never thought that it was more socially acceptable to be divorced
it
than
seems that way? And
than to
again,
be
this may
single.
be my narrative, feeling
Yeah.
called to put that out there, just because everyone talks about it. Like, what do you mean you're like 40? Like, yeah, a couple of people, even one client one time told me, Stephanie, you're not married. Like, you're living my worst nightmare. And I was like, thank you.
This is a man or a woman?
It was a guy. And I was like, thank you.
I have no words.
Thank you.
Is that
Yes.
client married?
No, he's walking through a lot of things himself. But the point is, so I deal with a lot of like the Gen Zs. I don't know if you know about these new languages
Oh, yeah.
that they have, like no cap Stephanie.
Yeah.
Like no cap Stephanie, like bruh. Like that's not bussin'. Like that mid, and
You
like
know the whole
they
dictionary of the
oh my
Gen
gosh.
Z.
And then my nephews are even
That's the Gen
younger.
Alphas, right?
Yeah. And so skippity toilet.
Skippity toilet?
Oh, let me introduce you. It's a YouTube thing that
Okay.
like became this like thing. Now middle schoolers are like, they'll just randomly say skibbity. It like means something negative. In Ohio, the poor state of Ohio got thrown under the bus because Ohio now means like a big like L, like loser.
Yeah.
You don't want to be associated with Ohio. Like if someone says you have Ohio
I feel like I had
Riz,
a near miss because I lived in Iowa for many years and it totally could have been Iowa, but for
oh
whatever
yeah,
reason they ended up going with Ohio. I
yeah,
feel like Iowa totally could have been.
or Utah or
Mhm.
any of
Yeah,
those. But yeah, Riz, I mean charisma. Yeah, I think that one's cute.
it is.
And Sigma, I'm not 100% sure actually what Sigma means, but it means something to them.
I think it means like it's the
High.
best.
But yeah, they have all the languages.
So you're walking in this journey now where
Mhm.
it sounds like you're owning where you are. And you
Yes.
made this really cool decision where you were like, I could have made a life with this guy. I could have made a life with this guy. Even though my intuition was telling me that this isn't it, that this person's not really what I'm looking for, you could have just been like resolved. Well, it's time to do
40.
my thing. I'm
Yeah.
40.
Yeah.
I gotta
check
lock
off
it
some
up,
boxes.
and you didn't. And so now
No, I
I'm really
didn't.
honoring like the bravery and the integrity in that.
Oh, yes, but it'd be hard, because it's like, damn. And I never thought like this would be a part of my story. Fancy myself like a boy. Yeah, I crush on boys.
Yeah.
I love boys. Like that'd be my Achilles heel. But then I thought about karma. I was like, oh, maybe this is karma because, back in my addiction, it was like I was a tornado, they were a volcano or vice versa or whatever. And it was just a lot of chaos, a lot of fights, a lot of cheating on both sides,
Mhm.
just a lot of unwellness. Funny though, we all end up friends. We're all
Oh,
good. I'm good with all my
yeah.
ex.
Well, you said something so beautiful earlier that I just haven't been able to get out of my mind. And you said, I just have this sense that in all of my lifetimes, this one is pivotal for me.
Yes.
I just want to dig more into that because number one,
Yes.
that's just, I'm a big picture macro thinker, but that is some really big picture macro shit. So, how did you come to that realization and how does that factor in for you?
I do believe that I was supposed to go through all of these different things. And for whatever I'm supposed to go through from now until my doomsday, right? We're given a birth date and a death date. And I do think that we decide, right, the ultimate life lessons prior to becoming human, yet we also are given free will. So I do think that free will plays a part in our dash because we have a birth date or death date. The dash we can control, and that's it. However, just for me personally, right, I don't resonate with organized religion. I don't really resonate with different things, but what I do resonate with is energy and just believing that there is something bigger. I do believe that again, going back to soul contracts, I believe that the soul then goes through a woman and the domestication process happens. And you go through this domestication process as a human, you forget everything that you knew. You go through almost amnesia and you're just constantly trying to find your way home while you're human. And you assign yourself certain pivotal moments. Like I do believe we're part of our soul fam. We have to be.
Totally.
We have to be for us to like randomly meet, like in that weird location.
And just knew that we wanted to be friends right away.
Right. And just there's definitely reasons. And I do believe every person you come in contact with is part of your story. And I just believe that this is an important lifetime. I believe I've lived many lifetimes, which is so odd to think about. And I do
Yeah.
think I'm going to live again. I do.
Oh,
And
same.
I wish that there was a time capsule that I could put together and like dig it up and be like, oh, I was Stephanie in the last life. But ultimately, me believing that this is an important lifetime is really a personal belief because it does coincide with soul contracts and believing in past lives and believing in reincarnation, which isn't for everybody. Take what resonates with you and leave the
Mhm.
rest, because it's not going to be for everybody. But I believe in all things spiritual and magical. Do you believe this is an important lifetime for you? Do
I
you
hadn't
believe
thought
in
about that until you said it, and now I'm definitely going to be chewing on that for
Do you believe
sure.
in
I
reincarnation?
absolutely believe in multiple lifetimes, 100%.
Yeah.
I haven't had really like flashbacks to prior lives, but I have a sense that I've been here many times before and I will be back.
Yeah.
I'll be back. But I definitely think that there's just so many interesting things that happen in our lives. And I can look at my own life and certain interesting things that have happened just in terms of, for example, on the topic of sobriety, right? Like when I got sober and the ripples that have come from that, right? I got sober because I needed to get sober and because I feel like God told me that it was time for me to do it and gave me the opportunity to do it. And then since then, my mom got sober. I never tried to make my mom, I mean, when I was drinking, I was
It's a
trying to
big
get my
one.
mom to be sober. But many years ago, I had a vision that just made me accept that my mom is who she is and that I can't change her. And if she ever wants to get sober, she will. And so I just pursued going on with my bad self and trying to shine my light.
Right.
And part of that was giving up alcohol. And then what do you know? A couple years later, she's gets sober and she's now celebrated a year and change of sober. And this is like daily drinking for 20, 30 plus years.
That's
And so
huge.
it's so, people think it's so selfish to focus on shining our light. But I just feel like that's the way that we change the world. I think this is a very important life for me. For you, that resonates for me. Like when you said that, I just felt in my soul, like, yes, this is a very important life for Stephanie. And the fact that you did get sober and are now living such a different life than you lived and helping other people, it's a very important
So
life for
that
you.
that feeling you got and
Mhm.
you were like, "Oh, it's a hell yes for me." That's what you're meant to believe in this time, right? In this lifetime. The mind, whatever you believe is, period. Whatever you believe is. So if you believe there's 7 levels of heaven, there is. If you believe that the sky is brown, it is. Because your ego and time and space and all the things will find ways to make that true. Take what resonates with you and leave the rest.
Mhm.
And so for me, it does go back to, again, just a belief that this is an important lifetime for you. This is an important lifetime for all of us. We all randomly decide to be alive. And I mean, at the end of the day, us millennials have experienced so much, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
we like came out with a bang. But you know what? Every generation says that. Every generation feels like,
We're all the stars of our own shows. Yeah.
absolutely, we are all. When you said something like shining our light, it can seem selfish. We're normalizing. You have to take care of yourself first. It's that cliche old saying, like, love yourself before you can love others. It is so true. If you don't put yourself first, if the mom of 3 kids doesn't take time for herself, she's not going to be the best mother, wife, et cetera, that she can be. If I don't take time for myself, I'm not going to be a good therapist. Same with you. You have to take time for yourself. And thankfully, we're starting to normalize that narrative as opposed to the go, 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 stop, stop. You don't stop, shove everything under the rug. That did not get us anywhere. It's time to prioritize yourself. And it's not from an egotistical point of view, it's the mindful intention of, I'm going to help myself so that I can help others. It's like a lifestyle of you take personal inventory, right? And you are thoughtful and mindful of when you mess up and you call yourself out and you're like, you know what? I could have shown up a little different there. That's an area of improvement on my part. You pray and meditate and have a relationship with something higher than yourself, and then you're of service. This life is paradoxically about you and what you will do for others, period. And
Mm.
that's just my beliefs, right? But that's what I believe. I believe this to be true.
I've just come across so many people that I look up to and respect. I've heard this from Albert Einstein. I've heard it from Sarah Blakely. So
Mhm.
Albert Einstein had 3 non-negotiables every day. He would take a walk,
Mhm.
he would play his violin, and he would take a bubble bath.
Period.
And that's where he would come up with his best ideas.
Yep.
Sarah Blakely schedules, the founder of Spanx, she schedules time on her calendar every day. Because what you're talking about, I resonate with so much, which is like, what are your values? What works for you? What do you believe to be true? But in order to do that, especially in our hyper connected world, we need to put the phone down and
Yes.
just have no input.
Be.
Just think, like, what are my values? What did I mess up on today that I would want to do better? And that's where we think about like journaling. And the act of journaling is great because you're writing it down. That's awesome. But we can also do that while we're taking a walk. This is a podcast. I recommend that you listen to my podcast on your walk. But if you're not listening to a podcast, she's a model, you guys.
I know.
Did you see that hair flip? Don't listen to anything and
Be alive.
just be
Oh my
alive.
gosh. Did you see that wink though? I hope
She just did the best wink and like shoulder hair flip. She used to get paid to do that, you guys. But that's the thing is like, and I struggle with
Long
it
time
too. It's like, oh, input. I have input, listening to podcasts. I'm in school, I'm reading, all of these things. But sometimes I just have to put all of it down and that's where the downloads come through. And that's why I think we have good ideas when we're like in the shower or driving, because it's the only time that God or the universe can be like, here's this idea. You're finally not on Instagram for a second. I'm going to give you this amazing idea and this
Yes.
amazing realization.
There are so many studies to have been shown that people's best, most grand ideas come from the shower. And there was also a study about how it's a cleansing, it's a bath where you wash off the day or the start of the day or the whatever, and you really visualize the water washing off what no longer serves you. And then as you step out of the shower, the bath, you are stepping into your higher self, into your higher timeline. And I do that every night. I'm a night shower gal. And so at night, no matter what I've done, I have to wash that day off. And I really look at it as almost like a ceremonial situation where that water cleanses me. What no longer serves me goes down that drain. And I walk out of that shower into my higher timeline. And that's what happens.
I just got the chills,
Yes,
Stephanie.
yes. It's I love that. But then I'm also wanting to kind of switch gears about social media.
Mhm.
Thankfully, we grew up in the 90s. Like, I've got a whole, like, box of pictures, but you won't find those online,
No.
you know? And it's so interesting because I remember when, Oregon Trail and Windows 98 came out, right? Yeah. I'm that old. We already know. But it's such an interesting thing because you want to use the platform. I do truly believe that you're aligned with the message I'm going to say is you want to use it for good. Sure, the likes and the follows and the comments are very positive. However, and they work on that dopamine receptor. However, you are here for the greater good. Like you're wanting to use your platforms for good. You're wanting to spread love and light. It's just such a different world for these teenagers. I have a lot of clients coming in who COVID, sure, it hurt all of us, right? But let's think about those like teenage athletes who like worked their whole lives and didn't get to go to state, didn't get to go to prom, didn't get to have a graduation. um State was postponed. Some of them graduated and didn't get to do state, both college and high school. So I get a lot of student athletes or former athletes and they're injured, right? And they can't perform anymore and their mental health goes, right? Because they're not able to produce those endorphins, which is the combat to cortisol. So what are they doing? They're scrolling. And I can't tell you the amount of decline I see because you won't talk about body dysmorphia that I obtained through physical defects or whatever I obtained in the 90s and early 2000s. This is a whole different ballgame.
Really?
Oh, yeah. The amount of information and the amount of people that they can compare to. And now you've got AI, of course, that people can compare to is detrimental. But again, it's also positive because AI I think, is a positive as well. So I think it's all in how you use it. But I do feel called to ask you about what your ideas of social media are. What are the cons? What are the pros? Do you find yourself constantly scrolling? Because I get it. I'm a doom scroller sometimes too. I definitely have been that doom scroller finding those reels and being like, there's a duck or a cat because it's very creative. People are very creative. And I think
Oh, it
that's a
is. And it
positive.
does expose us to the magic of humanity. And
Yes,
so
I
I
agree
just
with
think
that.
that it just is. It's just a thing.
It's just
It's just like alcohol. It's just like shopping. It's just like having a great
dopamine. Yeah.
conversation in person. It's no different than that. I mean, I'm hyper simplifying here, but it is just a thing that, again, use it but take time away from it. And it's like I'm literally asking for so little. I'm asking people for 1 hour a day. And I'm not saying that I don't struggle with it myself. I do. But every time we're in line, every time we're waiting for something, every time we have one moment free, the phone comes out.
Right.
And all I'm saying is
Yes.
just try to minimize that
Yeah, a little
so
bit.
that we can be our pure selves without that constant input. I think it's a tool for good. I actually wrote a paper in college, back in 2006, sort of, we still were on flip phones. But I wrote a paper in college that was just all about how, this demonization of like, oh, people looking at their phones. But I see people looking at their phones and they're smiling and they're using it
Yes.
to connect with people.
Yes.
It's like anything else, a tool that can be used for good or for negative. We can even turn our brain off. We can stop using our arm for a moment. And that's what it is. It's just not using it 24/7. And I think that for kids, I'm interested in what you see in the kids. If you see that they're just constantly on it, do they have time away because I think that's where it just becomes like an arm, right?
That's what I've witnessed is that they don't know anything different also, So for us, it's like, wait a minute, go outside, you know? I do see like it has become an arm, right? However, it's the same receptor. You can do gambling, sex, food, sugar, alcohol, drugs, blah, blah, blah. So now it's social media or the phone in general or playing video games or whatever. And of course, it's set up, and I think that social media has become more mindful of how they're targeting kids because they're just more susceptible.
Mhm.
Again, that prefrontal cortex, and they love the dopamine hits and they're so fast and they're so they're increased, they're fast and consistent. And so it's hard. You're combating a double edged sword with the little kids, but it's positive that they aren't allowing them in school anymore, which is positive. But some of the clients that I've seen that's very much a detriment.
Yeah. So do you see in parents today that they are instilling values in their kids? My parents were great disciplinarians. They taught me don't lie, don't steal. And they brought me to church because that was, how they had been conditioned. But I didn't really learn critical thinking from them.
Right.
It was like my way or the highway. There was no discussion. I didn't get to ask questions. And if I started to ask questions, I was sent to my room. And so I'm just curious if you see, and I'm sure it runs the gamut, but in general,
Right.
do you see that parents are because I believe like if we want to get you woo woo that there's definitely like an evolution of consciousness happening and I'm so
Absolutely.
optimistic for Gen Alpha and all these
Yes.
they're so much more aware
Yes.
than I was at
Yes.
that age.
Oh,
Oh, and
even
it's
the
got to
Gen
be coming
Z.
and Gen Z. They're just so much more aware. They're so much more wise than I
Absolutely.
was at that
Mm,
age. And so I'm just curious
absolutely.
if you see a difference in the parents and what they're teaching kids.
I think it's like you said, the gambit, right? It's a yes and situation. A lot of the work I do with the parents is boundaries and consequences. I have seen a lot of parents having difficulties setting boundaries. They allow their adult child or their adolescent child to kind of run the show at home, where they create this like eggshell environment. The child will create this eggshell environment through behavioral outbursts or even aggression, unfortunately, to the property or what have you. And so it creates this eggshell environment where the parents are scared of their own child. And it's like, and I constantly have to do the work. We do behavior contracts, we do boundaries and consequences. If
Mhm.
this, then this, which is a constant difficulty for a lot of the parents because for some reason these ideas weren't implemented from, age 7 or earlier because they weren't it wasn't done to them. And so it's just this constant reconditioning and reprogramming for everyone, inclusive, or all of us collectively. And also, speaking of the collective, I do believe that there really is this like massive awakening happening. But not everyone's supposed to wake up, and that's okay, which is so odd.
It is. And it's like a pendulum swing where it's like,
Yes.
my parents were great with discipline, horrible with feelings and emotions and spirituality. And now the parents are maybe better with feelings and emotions and spirituality, but suck at boundaries and discipline. And then hopefully the pendulum kind of rests
Evens
in the
out.
middle in some of the future
Absolutely,
generations.
absolutely. That is the hope. But also, again, not every generation's going to get it. And there's never going to be like this one perfect generation. They're not going to be called Gen Perfect,
Yeah.
like that's never going to happen. Being a human is messy.
It's so messy, Stephanie.
It's
It's the
beautifully
messiest,
chaotic.
beautifully chaotic. So, before we close, I'd love to
Okay.
just talk a little bit about addiction because I think that's
Yes.
what we're circling here.
Yes.
And we were talking a little bit before this about what we were individually addicted to. So, for me,
Okay.
I was like, I had to give up alcohol. The addiction that I do still struggle with, and that I realized that alcohol was just a symptom of my addiction. I am actually addicted
Oh,
to disassociation. Like, I
yes.
think I'm very interested in life and I'm curious and I'm driven and gregarious. And then I think it's my spirit's way of just being like, you got to turn off sometimes, woman. Like, so you need to disassociate. And I've disassociated through alcohol. And now I disassociate through sugar and social media. Those are two of the things that I struggle with now. And so I'm curious for you, what do you think your root addiction is and was? And how do you work with that in your life today?
I believe it's a mind game. I believe it starts with the mind, continues with the mind, and ends with the mind. And I do believe for me personally, it was my neurotransmitters. I believe that I don't produce serotonin at the natural level as some others. And so I experienced a deep sadness as a child. I do think that my, you know, eye issues contributed to that because I would bang my head up against the crib
Mhm.
to try to shake double vision at the ripe old age of 1.
Wow.
So clearly there was some disconnect and some, docile stuff in there. And I do believe for me personally, it's the mind. And so that's what constantly it takes me back. I believe that it was low serotonin, low dopamine, and I was unable to handle life on life's terms, no cognitive structure.
So you were struggling with the mind, you were feeling sad and lost, and you resorted to the tool that was in the environment, which was drugs.
Depression and like the malady, if you will, was a part of me from the jump. That's why, real quick, I want to talk about Inside the Malady, right?
Yes, please.
It is a book that I'm writing actively. I remember at your book launch party, you were like, "Oh, I've been working on this book for 5 years." And I was like, wow, that's a long time. And here I am. I've written 40,000 words.
Amazing.
And I've also decided that I don't resonate with writing from the I point of view, that a creative nonfiction is more aligned with me so I can be as open and honest as I would like to
Mm.
be. And so her name is Madeline Duncan. And Madeline Duncan is who goes on all of these adventures inside the malady.
I'm so excited about your book because just that idea of being inside the malady, the sickness, the
Yes.
illness, this topic that's so taboo of having low serotonin, of being addicted to disassociation. I'm a person who has based my whole career on feeling alive and engaging with life. And yet I struggle with an addiction to disassociation. So that's part of my malady. And so you're writing this beautiful
Yeah.
book that takes us inside of that from the
Yes.
malady's
Yes. And so what made me think of that is how I've always had a malady. The malady's always been present for me. And again, like you so eloquently put, that I reached out to what was available to me in my environment, which was the alcohol and drugs. And my first drug was boys, and
Mm,
was trying to feel love from boys
mhm,
because I didn't have it towards myself. And my parents did the best they could with what they were handed.
exactly.
But dad wasn't home and he didn't know how to show love because it wasn't shown to him. And I'm not saying that to hurt someone's feelings or to be mean. It just is.
Mhm.
We're the oldest.
Oldest girl. Yep.
So generational trauma is embedded in us. And I do believe that I'm chosen to break these generational curses of a lot of mental unwellness and different things. I truly believe that. And again, important lifetime. I believe that for you as
Same.
well.
That makes me think about this. I watched a video recently that was a woman saying that she was struggling with shopping addiction
Yeah.
and that she had a light bulb had gone off for her and she realized that she wasn't painting, she wasn't creating anything, and that she felt like her shopping addiction was the manifestation of her blocked creative channel because she wasn't sewing clothes or creating, or painting, that she was seeking to fulfill that desire through putting together outfits that she saw online. And she's like, I'm painting now every day and I don't feel like I need to shop as much anymore. And so I think for those of you who are listening to, what Stephanie and I are talking about this malady is like, if you are sick with something, whether it be an addiction of some kind, a profound sadness, you may not find the answer right away, but please look for it. Right? Ask yourself, what is it that's missing? And it's going to be hard because these are really painful questions to answer. Get yourself a good therapist like Stephanie or a good coach and explore this because you're not messed up. You're not broken. You're bent. And being a human is really hard,
Yes.
but we have to put down the phone and just reflect and journal
Yeah.
in order to figure this stuff out. And just like you said at the beginning so beautifully, what were the two things that are the constants about life?
It changes and it goes on. That's what you can guarantee in life. It's going to constantly change and it's going to constantly move forward, period. And we're just along for the ride. We're just these beings of light having a human experience along for the ride for possibly 100 years. And enjoy the
Get
ride.
yourself a regal cat named
Yes.
Kaden. And
Also, if you're single,
oh yes, Stephanie is newly single.
Yes.
She has a lovely cat.
Yes.
She is gorgeous. She is a newly licensed therapist
Yes.
specializing in EMDR. You
That's
just you've gone through stuff in your life and you've triumphed and you've survived and you've thrived. And I'm so excited for these
Thank
next
you.
7 years that you have.
Thank you so much for allowing me to speak about all the things on here.
If people wanted to get in contact with you to follow up at all, is there a way that they can do that?
Absolutely. EmbraceMindHealth.com. I also am offering to the listeners a free 50-minute session via telehealth with me. You can just let me know that Be Alive was where you found me,
Mhm.
and we can move forward with talking about whatever you feel called to.
Yeah. So if you need some of Stephanie's medicine, her wisdom, and her energy, go to embracemindhealth.com. Reach out to Stephanie. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you. I
Mwah.
love you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Be Alive with Kate Manser with me. Truly, I take it as no small honor. You have so much out there you could be listening to. So the fact that you took this time with me and my show, honestly, means absolutely the world to me. I hope that you got some meaning, some purpose, a little dash of aliveness, and definitely some inspiration out of what you heard today. That is always, always my goal. If you liked what you heard, please share this episode with a friend, a confidant, with a mentor. Please, more, darling. Always more. Excess. Everything. We want it all in this life. So share it and go on your app of choice and leave some stars, leave a review. It helps me buy food for pajamas, and it helps more people find this show so that we can all live just profoundly alive together. It's a beautiful day, y'all. Thank you for being here.